Hello, welcome to a new show for the channel. 2020, we're evolving things over here. The show's called The Wrap, and basically at the end of every month, how it's going to work at first, at the end of every month, I'm just going to do a little wrap up of tracks and albums that I wasn't able to react to through time, through circumstance, what may or may not have worked as individual videos on the channel. This thing's going to evolve anyway, but it's also massively driven by you guys, as you'll see as we go through. You know, I'll be putting out questions, I need your suggestions. You guys give me suggestions all day. This is a great way to get involved with the channel. So yeah, it's pretty simple concept. We're just going to wrap up what I didn't speak about in January. Right, first of all, it's Dreamville, and it's the Revenge of the Dreamers 3 Deluxe Director's Cut, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty damn good. The thing is about this record, it came out at a weird time for me. The first version of it, not the Director's Cut, came out at a weird time for me. It pretty much came out exactly around the time Rock Reacts ended, and everything was in a little bit of turmoil then. So I've got this kind of connection in my head between this record and that kind of tumultuous time in my life. I had gone on and listened to the record off camera since then, and then obviously these new songs on the back of it, and considering it's now 30 tracks in length, there's barely any skips in it, but just by its nature, do you know what I mean? It's a massive group project. There's all these different energies come from everywhere, so there's not much of a through line to it. But actually saying that, considering how many people are involved, considering how many tracks there are on this thing, it is actually thematically not actually dissimilar from each other, which is kind of crazy. That just shows the energy that was in the place. And I've seen the documentary as well, the mini documentary, the kind of energy they had going on. In terms of new tracks on this one, you've got Big Black Truck, which I love. Yeah, I really like Up Up Away. I like Still Dreaming. I like Bust It with Ari Lennox. Good strong tracks on there, absolutely. And it really is just it's a fucking good project. Also, can we just take a little moment, a little JID appreciation moment? This guy is just disgustingly talented. He is phenomenal, dude. I think it's just a matter of time before he truly breaks out into being one of the key artists of the next decade. He has it all. Working out either the colours version or just the album version, I mean, they're very similar anyway. That is a 10 out of 10 track. It is phenomenal, dude. I'm so excited for what he has coming up next. I really think that he has the potential, just in terms of his overall energy, his skill level, his ear for melody, his incredible bars. I think the guy has it all. I'm really excited for what's coming up next with JID. And when I listen to this project, I'm just listening out for I'm waiting for him. Okay, next up, and you'll see from the suggestion I had on screen, this is What's Poppin' by Jack Harlow, a name that I'd heard but not really an artist that I'd listened to before. Kind of assumed he was a different type of artist by the look. You know, that's what we do in life, isn't it? And quite a fun little track, actually. A nice little bop, nice little vibe to it, but with some bars sneaking in there as well. Cole Bennett on the video is doing crazy numbers, so I guess, you know, definitely has a decent audience, but also just carried a kind of youthful energy but mixed it with a bit of substance. I actually really did like this track. Definitely interested in hearing more from Jack, so let me know what else, if he's got some major tracks that I need to be hearing. Okay, one of the things that we're going to be doing on this video is moving around genres, moving around different parts of the world, all sorts of different stuff. A lot of people have been asking me to check out Poppy with I Disagree, saying it was this kind of new type of metal, all this sort of stuff. I remember hearing the name when there was some sort of viral thing a few years ago. I couldn't even work it out at the time, but I put this on, and yeah, I mean, it definitely worked. It's almost a shame that there's not a reaction video to it, because it's perfect for a reaction video. You've got this very nice pop singing voice, which is like, sounds like plastic pop, and then it just switches to like throaty death metal, new metal riffs, and then actually throughout the record there's a surprising amount of depth in terms of different styles as well. I do think the joke wore a little thin after a little while, but you know, there's no denying some of the riffs. There's baby metal elements there as well. And then some of the songs, when it was less about the contrast between the pop singing and the metal, songs like Anything Like Me, where it was a bit more of just like a sort of heavy rock metal track, just actually genuinely really strong. So that one took me by surprise. It's one I'm going to be going back to. Coming back home briefly, and we've got HEADIE 1 ex-Fred again with Charades. I'm a big fan of HEADIE 1 anyway. I think he's definitely one of the most talented people in drill, and he's able to kind of move beyond that and fit onto all sorts of different types of beats. And this is him with a slightly different style to what I've heard him before, going for a kind of more melodic style, kind of not dissimilar to Roddy Ricch without going all the way up into the full singing. It was interesting to hear HEADIE one like this. He still has a way of slicing through the beat, even in this style, which I think is really impressive. Do I like it in the same level as like a Both or something like that? Not necessarily, but it was interesting to see his versatility as an artist. And, you know, I'm going to be excited for whatever he has coming next, to be honest. Okay, next up we have Russ, the much maligned Russ, with his album Shake the Snow Globe. An interesting one. I know he's kind of hated, and I've never really figured out why. Maybe people don't like his online personality or something like that. I don't really care about stuff like that. Musically, I found it was a decent project. I mean, I didn't give it the full multiple listens, but it was fairly tuneful. I don't think the subject matter was particularly interesting. A lot of boasting without too much substance on most of it, which is fine, but a whole project of that gets very, very tedious. But beats-wise, kind of reminded me of kind of Drake-type beats with almost J. Cole-type delivery. Nothing hugely original, but some good features on there as well. There's a track with Rick Ross, where Rick Ross does his usual thing and just kills the feature. And there's a track with Benny the Butcher as well, where Benny the Butcher does, to be honest, completely wash Russ just because he's on a completely different level. But it was interesting to hear Benny in a slightly more laid back form as well to what I've heard from him in the past. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily an album that I'm going to go and put on loads of times, but it was perfectly listenable, quite enjoyable. He seems like a skilled artist, and I also admire the fact that he seems to be doing everything independently and trying to share those lessons with other people. So yeah, I don't really get the hate, but maybe you guys can let me know. Kind of on a pop thing, it's Halsey with 3am. You can see the recommendation up on screen here. Surprisingly good, actually, surprisingly good. This is all pretty positive, isn't it? But that's kind of the way I go anyway. If there's something awful, I'll probably just leave it off it. But yeah, kind of a pop punk joint. Elements of Paramore in there without the vocal range and without the shifting from major to minor chords that make that band what they are, but still, yeah, like decent substance. I haven't heard too much Halsey, and she's a good singer. Pleasantly surprised. I was expecting more of a pop song than something with guitars with a bit of bite, and it definitely had that. It's definitely produced, don't get me wrong, it doesn't sound too raw, but you know, it wouldn't be one that I'd be disappointed by if it popped on the radio when I'm driving. Pretty forgettable though, because as I'm talking about it I can't remember what it sounds like. But regardless, you know, like, fair enough, just don't go and say G-Eazy at a concert, clearly, because that causes some trouble. Back home again, well, kind of, and really interesting combination here, real good fit. It's Gorillaz featuring Slow Tie and Slaves. Now Slow Tie just can't do any wrong at the moment, just jumping between hip-hop, rap, jumping from working with Skepta to Muramasa and now Gorillaz, and he's definitely in his more kind of shouty punk bag here, and that's kind of what the song is. It has a kind of melodic sound from the Gorilla side, and then obviously Slaves and Slow Tie bringing the punkier edge to it. A decent track. I've given it a few listens now. It's not as standout as like Deal With It from Slow Tie and Muramasa, but you know, it's just great to see Slow Tie just seemingly fitting in wherever he goes and just bringing a different type of energy. He's such a unique artist because he definitely has the chops to just sit and be an MC, be a rapper. He has the bars, he has the flow, he has the technique, he has the voice, he has the substance, but he can also do this punk thing, and it's a real crossover there. Yeah, it's a decent track. I don't know what direction Gorillaz are going to go in, if there's a new project coming this year. You couldn't hear too much Damon Albarn on this one, so it was mainly driven by Slow Tie, to be honest. But yeah, maybe one. I feel like it's maybe one of those tracks that gets better and better over time, but definitely worth checking out if you haven't heard it yet, especially if you're a Slow Tie fan, obviously. Alright, different kind of energy for this one, and this is a band called GENGAHR, yes, like the Pokemon. If you're a Tame Impala type of fan, I know their new record is due in, 10 days, so that's exciting, but not dissimilar vibes, kind of psychedelic-y, indie rock, disco vibes in there as well. The album's not too long, it's over and done, it's very, very tight. It's one of those albums that you can put on and kind of drift away to, but there's enough punch to the more disco-y numbers on there as well that it will wake you up. Listen, if you're a hardcore hip-hop fan, if you're sitting there listening to Death Grips and Earl Sweatshirt, this isn't necessarily going to be for you, and I accept that. But if you're somebody that, you know, goes and enjoys like Tame Impala, or even somebody that, you know, vibes with the more melodic trap stuff, the Travis Scotts of this world, give it a listen, see what you think. That's what this channel is ultimately all about. This channel only exists because of me listening to music that I wasn't necessarily familiar with in the past and falling in love with the whole side of music and becoming a student of the game. And, you know, I definitely want to promote that back through the channel as well. You know, an album like this wouldn't have worked for a full album reaction on the channel. No way, it wouldn't have got the views, but if we can get a few new fans and see what you think, I'm just, even if it's a bit of discourse, I think it's always worth doing, and that's kind of what these videos are all about. Okay, from that to something that's definitely very much in the wheelhouse of this channel is PLAYTHATBOIZAY with the new track Swarm, which Denzel Curry actually put out on his own channel to give the guy a push, which I love. I love that energy. Denzel Curry's ego is just in the right place as far as I'm concerned. You know, I'm a huge Denzel fan. This is not dissimilar to Denzel, kind of that like metal edge, very much, you know, that kind of Florida sound, very aggressive. He perhaps needs, PLAYTHATBOIZAY perhaps needs to find his own voice a little bit more. There's elements of Denzel, there's elements of XXXTentacion there, although he has a bit more depth to his voice. I would like to hear it in a slightly different setting, perhaps in a live setting, perhaps in a mosh pit type setting, because it definitely has that metal energy. But I'm perhaps interested in hearing where PLAYTHATBOIZAY goes with more breadth in his music, because while I like this song, couldn't do 11 tracks of this, but if you've got someone like Denzel being your mentor who can create all these different influences and bring all these different styles together, I think potentially he could be in that lane as well. In terms of Denzel's crew we talk about, I wouldn't say that PLAYTHATBOIZAY right now is on the level of, say, an Anonymous. Definitely not on the level of Denzel, obviously, but that doesn't mean that there's not potential for something there. And I'd imagine, you know, that song comes on, say he supports Denzel on a tour, and that song comes on, the crowd's going to go nuts. Right, a few more. Another recommendation from Twitter here. There it is, there, wherever I put it. It's actually Selena Gomez, a track from a new album with BLACK called Crowded Room. A kind of forgettable pop number from Selena Gomez. A decent, you know, the production sounds great. She sounds fine on the track. It's perfectly pleasant to listen to. Then BLACK comes in and takes it to another level. I like the real dark edge of BLACK, like on a track like Problems. So it's not that, it's much more of the gentler Pretty Little Fears type of BLACK, but at the same time that he does elevate the track, there's no two ways about it. Is it going to be one that I necessarily put on a playlist and listen to over and over again? I don't think so. I just don't think it quite had the substance. But it's nice to see an artist like Selena Gomez, who obviously has a huge young audience. I guess they're not even that young, everybody's getting older, right? But regardless, you know, huge global audience, working with an artist like BLACK, who's by all means, you know, he's certainly not a small artist at all. But I think we're going to see more of a trend of that going forward. You know, what with Billie Eilish working with Denzel Curry, not on a song, but, you know, on tour and stuff. Just finding that crossover there in how fans of pop music and fans of like hip hop and rap, just because it's such a huge genre now, it is basically pop music in itself. I think we're going to see more and more crossovers in that space. So it's interesting for that, if nothing else. Alright, back home for the last two now, and this is one that's kind of speaks to me, to be honest. It's Liam Gallagher, obviously of Oasis fame, kind of doing a very by the numbers Liam Gallagher track. I actually kind of prefer the direction that Liam's gone in recently than Noel. I think it helps having that iconic voice. This isn't on the level of classic Oasis songs, but it does have one of my all-time heroes, Eric Cantona, if you know, you know, from Manchester United, in the video as the star, kind of lip-syncing and walking through this like palatial, stately home in England. The song itself, decent, probably would sound good on a festival stage or something like that. I don't think it's the best of Liam's recent songs, and like I said, it's definitely not a patch on classic Oasis. But while Noel goes in a different direction and seemingly becomes a little more miserly, a little more grumpy, I'm still disappointed that he didn't make the effort to do that Ariana Grande show in Manchester after the bombings. You know, like, the world needed that at a time, and Liam came and he brought it with the Oasis songs. Listen, whatever reason is the reason, but it's easier to root for Liam these days, which is kind of strange. It is kind of a strange feeling after how it used to be back in the day. But regardless, a decent track. Decent, nothing special. And finally, a little bit of UK drill to wrap things off. DUTCHAVELLA, an artist I hadn't heard before, with a track called Only If You Knew. Very, very heavy, aggressive drill track. What I liked about it is the instrumental was strong, the flow was decent. It wasn't particularly remarkable in any way, other than the fact that DUTCHAVELLA as an artist is just a little bit older than a lot of the drillers that I've heard, and because of that, he carries a little bit more presence, I think, than some of the drill rappers. It helps that his face was there, so I mean, I like the guys in masks as well, and I get the whole aesthetic, but you know, you can kind of connect to somebody when you can actually see them, and you know, it does make a difference. But he had kind of almost Rick Ross vibe to it, and if you're watching this, I don't mean you look like Rick Ross, like DUTCHAVELLA is in good shape, but he carried that kind of boss aesthetic. There was you know, a bit of luxury in the video. It was a kind of juxtaposition between, you know, being shot on an estate, being shot in a tower, being shot on a stairwell, but also he's like, you know, Ferraris in the video and stuff like that. So kind of like a bit more of a luxury drill track, I guess you call it. Again, nothing hugely remarkable in how it sounded, but it did sound good, and he's an artist that definitely has a lot of presence. Alright guys, that's about it. That's about it for the January version of the wrap. Let me know down below any tracks that I may have missed, something that's really spoken to you from January 2020, whether it's a full album or an individual track. We're going to do this every single month at the end to wrap up the month, but it may eventually turn into like just albums at the end of the month and tracks every week. We'll see how it goes. All about evolution on this channel. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you are new, please do subscribe. Check out the Patreon link as well, and I'll just catch you on the next one. Thank you. Bye.